This is another episode of Fire Breathing Rob, and we're going to bring the fire today. We have a special guest, and if you are a progressive and you watch, whether it's mainstream media or progressive media online, you've probably seen this guy on because he was all over the news and for good reason. And this is Chris Smalls. And Chris, just an intro about Chris, if you haven't heard about him, he was a former Amazon supervisor who was fired for trying to organize a walkout. And, this was because of Amazon, and we're going to kick this around in just a second, their lack of PPP and their lack of protective practices throughout this coronavirus. So I want to thank Chris. And Chris, thanks so much for coming on and really talking to the viewers. We greatly appreciate your time today.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
What your position was, Chris, at Amazon, what you did?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I started out at Amazon in 2015. Came in entry level. I was a picker, the pick department, which is the department that picks customer items from the robots that they bring to our station, and before they be transferred on the conveyor system to the pack department to be shipped out the building. I bust my tail in the pick department for about 7 to 8 months, and I was promoted up to process assistant. PA, which is a supervisor or a manager's assistant for layman's terms. And I did that for the last 4 years. I opened up 3 major buildings for them. Started off in New Jersey, transferred to BDL2 in Connecticut, and my last building was JFK 8 in Staten Island.
Wow, you've been all over the place. Damn, all right. So you are truly a veteran of Amazon and knowing everything that goes on there pretty much. So my question is, and like I said, the viewers had this question, but my question is, through hearing and listening to the news, we hear that Amazon is tracking workers, limiting bathroom breaks. We also heard that people that, whether they're drivers or urinating in cups, and they're tracking how fast workers are packing the packages. Can you speak about that? And what was that like working at Amazon? Because you've worked in all sorts of Amazon areas as far as parts of the country and also worked in different positions. Is this stuff true?
Yeah, a lot of the stories that came out about, the associates being tracked, every building was a different culture. And I can tell you this, Amazon is a production company. Don't let the technology and the gadgets and I guess you could say the money they put into their warehouses fool you. At the end of the day, when you break it down, it's a production warehouse. As soon as you clock in, you're being timed. And when it comes to workers and being tracked, they very much track them because that's what separates Amazon from its competitors. It produces at a high level all the time. It has more people working longer hours, and in this a little bit of time, we as supervisors, we're supposed to pretty much be on top of workers and make sure that they're always in a position where they have to be working or set up for work. And unfortunately, you hear these horror stories. And, me as a worker, I could say when I was on the entry level position, I tried to give it all that I had. I worked hard for like 10 hours a day. I barely took my break. And when you're doing this, you're putting yourself in like solitary confinement. You go in, you clock in, you're at your station. In order to be better than somebody else or be better than the next person, or even exceed the level that you want to exceed, you have to pretty much limit your bathroom breaks, limit the time that you take on breaks, and you're risking your health at the same time. This company hires people that are 18 years old all the way up to 85 years old. You name it, I had them all. And unfortunately, when you're trying to meet a standard of the company, you put your body at risk, and some people put their health at risk and do things like that. Urinate in bottles, don't take their bathroom breaks. They think that that's the way to get ahead and get recognized in the company. It's a sad situation, sad culture. Unfortunately, it took years for me to realize what I was a part of, but that's just the reality of the situation. These stories are very much true.
Well, it almost sounds like a school atmosphere. You get bathroom breaks, like
It is.
you can't go to the bathroom on your own time. I mean, it's really disgusting, but we're not just seeing this at Amazon, Chris. We see this all over corporate America and how they're using and abusing workers. And it's really disgusting. And this goes to, and I definitely want to kick this around about unions, and that we've seen in this country throughout, many years that union membership has went down. And, we look at Walmart, we look at Amazon, and these big companies, when they hear someone talk about a union, they shiver their timbers.
No, yeah, I agree. And I can tell you, I spent some time in Florida after high school. I went down there. And when I was down there back in 2007, the minimum wage was $7, $7.25, $7.15, something like that. And President Bush was in office. Gas was like $5 a gallon. I couldn't survive down there, and I was getting paid every 2 weeks. I'm talking about bringing home $300 every 2 weeks. So it's not too much has changed since 2007. 2020, I can tell you now, I was capped out at Amazon, talking about the richest company in the world, the richest man in the world. I was capped out at $25 an hour, and I've been there 5 years. That's a shame. $25 an hour in the metropolitan area, like you said, you can't raise a family. I have kids of my own. I'm a single parent. You cannot survive with just one job. You need multiple jobs, multiple income, or an alternative is what we're demanding now as workers, a decent living wage, something that's we can be able to sustain our life, and also enjoy the fruits of our labor. Want to take vacations with your family, do all the things that you deserve as American citizens. And this is supposed to be the greatest country in the world. Why not raise the minimum wage, get rid of it all entirely, and pay everybody a decent living wage? I demand that workers, and essential workers at that, should be paid a minimum of $30 an hour, no matter where you live in the country. It shouldn't matter where you live or what your skill set is. I trained people that had college degrees. You don't go to any 4-year accredited college and learn how to work in the warehouse. I don't care what school you work at. We went to our graduated from. You have to come there and get trained by somebody that has experience. So the experience that you put in should equal the value that you deserve to be paid. And that's how I feel about it now and then as well. So $30 an hour minimum. Sad because, these other countries are looking at America like, what is going on over here? And I can tell you personally, I've been in the streets ever since Amazon terminated me, protesting all over the country for various reasons, standing on the front lines with workers, with Black Lives Matter, for social injustice. I just came back from Washington. This country is in such disarray. It's scary. It's very scary, very gray. We don't know what the future holds, even with this election. We don't know who we want in office. We know what we want as workers and as people, as people of our communities, but it's hard to get there. And it's so hard because everybody is being divided by this administration. We're being divided by leaders of this country that's not coming together to advocate for the things that is very much needed, like the things you just spoke of. And I'm just trying to be a catalyst for that. I'm trying to make sure that I'm somewhat of a light at the end of this tunnel because, we don't know. And it's scary. I have, like I said before, I have children that I have to raise in this society, and I want them to grow up in a better society than the one I'm living in now. So that's just the real reason why I continue to fight on a daily basis.
So we know that Senator Bernie Sanders and the Fight for 15 really pushed Amazon to raise that minimum wage to $15 an hour. With that said, I hear, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, that a lot of Amazon employees are not making that $15 an hour because they're told they are temporary workers. Is that true? And if so, is there other things besides? Because I was told that people that worked at Amazon before the $15, they had some stock dividends that they could have, but when the $15 came into play, that was taken away. Can you talk about all this stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, yes. Amazon did raise their minimum wage to 15, I believe, an hour, but they did take away for us vets that were there. They took away our monthly bonuses, and they took away our stock options. So we were no longer getting shares from the company on an annual basis. Like every year, if you were an annual employee, an hourly associate, full time, you would get a share, or depending on how long you've been there, you'll get a couple shares, and you will be a shareholder. And they took that away. So they gave an inch, but they took a mile. So everybody was happy as far as the entry level workers. They were happy they were getting that 15. But at the same time, us vets, we realized we just lost out on thousands of dollars. You know, the monthly bonuses came in handy. And definitely our stocks, as you can see, they're making a killing off of their shares right now. So to take that away from us, and now we're stuck with where I was at when I left the company, $25 cap. You know, now there's a cap on, well, there was always a cap, but just to be capped as working for the richest man in the world, wow, this man just made, what, $70 billion over the course of the last 6 months. The company's revenue is going up. Why wouldn't you want the employees to get paid a piece of the pie? You know, we make the profits that Jeff Bezos have in his back pockets. So like, we deserve to have some of the money once it comes into the company. We put the money in. That's a part of our sweat equity. And to take all that away and give us minimum wage of $15.50 wasn't a win for us. And I know many of the workers that have been there 2, 3, 4 years, they were definitely upset about it. As far as the part-time workers, I believe Amazon, they pay the same wage all across the board.
Oh.
I guess it's just the fact that if you're part-time, you get less hours, so your checks is always going to be less pay. But you know, that's all I know as far as that. But we still lost out in the long run. I tell you, with that deal to raise minimum wage to $15.50.
Working at Amazon, do you think it's going to be a lot harder now to form a union because of the practices in place in Amazon? And do you just feel like it's really anti-union there in general?
Absolutely. It's 100% anti-union. It'll be extremely hard to unionize Amazon. This workforce in America is 600,000 nationwide, probably over 1 million plus employees worldwide. No sole union that I know of would be able to, I guess you could say, unionize this workforce, because the simple fact that you got to put in reality into perspective, that not all people are pro-union. You know, there's some pros about unions. There's also some cons about unions. And try to get that workforce to try to unionize is very hard, to get everybody on the same page. It was hard for me to get people to even participate in a small walkout, you know? So like, we gotta think of a different way. And what I did was, with my organization, TCOEW, the Congress of Essential Workers, I'm putting in perspective that we can use a union-like structure, but not be called a union. Give something that's employee-driven, something where there's a rank and file committee where the employees have control of their own contracts and negotiate their demands and what they feel is beneficial as workers for this company. Now, that's also somewhat like a union, but we have to get workers behind this movement. Start off small, start off in a small location, see how they feel about forming some type of rank and file committee where they could sit down at the table and say, hey, look, in this region, for example, South Florida, this is the cost of living in this area. We as workers deserve, you know, this minimum wage. We as workers deserve childcare as single parents. We as workers deserve Medicare. You know, working for the richest man in the world, he can afford to pay our medical insurance. These are small things that we want, and the PPE that we deserve to be protected at all time, especially when it comes to the pandemic. So we have to start off small, and that's what I'm trying to do with my organization, building up. Workers are coming to me on a daily basis, sending me their stories, and how they want to fight back against the company. So I'm trying to organize all of that together collectively, and then hopefully eventually we'll get to some type of union-like structure where we'll be able to negotiate.
So can we go back to March? And this is right when this pandemic was really kicking into gear, especially in the state of New York and in New York City. Can you talk about what happened and how this all got started?
Absolutely, yeah. So late February, early March, that's when the pandemic came into this country. Well, as far as we know, and it was on Seattle. It was in Seattle at that time. Seattle was the epicenter, and I was monitoring it from New York every day, going to work, watching the news, and I'm just watching. I was so in tune with it. I couldn't watch anything else, but just monitoring this virus. It was so alarming to me because I knew at that time we had some managers from our building that was over there in Seattle for training. And I'm not trying to say they were patient zero, but when they came back, one of the managers was sick. She was out of work for quite a while. And then I noticed the domino effect around me with my department. Workers were being sick. My coworkers, my managers, my bosses were calling out of work. It was alarming to see people in the domino effect with flu-like symptoms. We're talking about, vomiting, dizziness, fatigueness. I seen it all, fevers, everything. And I was, as a single father, worried about my health, worried about my children's health. I didn't want to bring this virus home. I went to my HR and I said, hey, what are we doing for parents to keep us safe? They were like, you can take your time off or you can apply for the Amazon Relief Fund and stay home. That they were offering employees unlimited paid time off. Doesn't make sense, right? Unlimited paid time off. So basically you get to stay home unlimited amount of time with no pay for as long as you want until you feel like you're safe. That was the only option Amazon really offered. And obviously financially, that is not an option. It's either you stay home with no money, lose your house, or you go to work and possibly get sick with this virus and die. Which one? So I felt like, no, that's not enough. I took further action. I sent some emails out to the health department, to the government's office, to the mayor's office, you name it. I did it behind the scenes because I felt like some type of investigation needed to be had, or some type of action needed to be taken. That didn't work. New York became the epicenter at that time. That around March 15th, that's when New York became the epicenter. It was hard for me to get any response. I didn't get any response from any of these offices that I contacted. So I returned back to work after taking some time off to protect myself on March 24th. My colleague, who I work hand in hand with, she was sick, physically sick. I seen in her eyes, I seen in her face.
Oh gosh.
You couldn't tell me that she didn't have the virus. That's how sick she looked. And I said, you need to go home as a friend. And she did. Thank God I did that because 2 days later, she tested positive. She had the virus the whole time. She was around hundreds of people in our department for 10-hour days, for multiple days in a row. On that same day, 2 hours later, we had a managers meeting and we learned that they told us not to tell our employees. They're going to individuals and telling them in private, which didn't make any sense to me because if we work in a building that has 5,000 employees, 5,000, and this virus is spread, 2.5 people just by sneezing. So can you imagine we're working around each other and not knowing that you possibly working next to somebody who has a virus. That's what they wanted to put us in. And they did, because I didn't stand with that. That was my last day working for Amazon on March 24th. What I did, I came back to the building the 25th throughout the 28th, sat in the cafeteria off the clock, telling the workers the truth. Every worker I seen, encountered with, I told them like, hey, what do you want to do about this? They're not telling you guys that you're not protected. We didn't have any PPE at the time anyway. No mask, no temperature checking. None of this stuff existed before I was fired anyway. So that was another thing, another issue. No cleaning supplies, people getting sick. So we went into the office every single day, interrupting the GM's general meetings every morning, advocating about our concerns. At the end of the week, they were using me as their tool to communicate with workers and have them peacefully, socially distance in the cafeteria the entire week, off the clock, by the way. Out of my own free will, I did this. And I had no problem doing it as long as I was going to get the result that they were going to close the building down for a minimum of 2 weeks. That's what we wanted in the beginning. Close the building down, clean the building. We'll come back to work in 2 weeks. 14 to give us that 14-day incubation period. They wasn't even really willing to do that. End of the week, guess who they decided to quarantine? Just me. Yeah. They quarantined me. Nobody else in my department. Nobody that's my colleagues been around. They didn't even quarantine the person that I ride to work with. So what did I tell everybody right there? That I was a target to be silenced for what I was doing. And I could not sit back at home knowing that my extended family, because these people I work with 40, 50, 60 hours a week, I consider them my extended family. Knowing that they're going to work every single day, I couldn't sit back and do nothing. So I decided to go through with a walkout on March 30th. After that, 2 hours later, I was terminated by Amazon. A week later, you may have not heard about it, Jeff Bezos has a meeting about me to run a smear campaign on me. I'm already at the bottom of the totem pole, but whatever. In this meeting, he has his general counsel, David Sapolsky, who says some racist remarks, pretty much calling me not smart or articulate. And to make me, ironically, to make me the face of the whole union organization, they'll be in a better PR position when it comes to the media if they smear me to make me seem like my words are not credible. This conversation was leaked, and now you have the richest man in the world plotting against me. And that's how I was able to gain even more of a platform and utilize this platform to organize workers. And that's what I've been doing ever since.
What are the friends that you know and the people that you know that are working at Amazon as far as PPE goes and protecting the workers going? Are they doing that now, or is it kind of pretty much the same old, same old?
Well, I could say this. I cost the company $4 billion, wow. When I was fired. I cost them $4 billion. Now they provide PPE to some degree. They deployed all these temperature checking stations all over the network. I changed the entire Amazon network. Now at my building was the pilot. Staten Island was the pilot building for all of these things. It didn't happen as fast as it should have happened. It was very reactive instead of proactive, and workers have died in my building from coronavirus. It wasn't prevented because the company failed. But I can say they at least attempted after I was terminated to provide somewhat of safety measures now. But it's still, it changed a little bit, but it's not the same. It's a very demoralizing situation that the workers are in. The workers that I know, my friends that are still there, they don't like the company anymore. They take it with a grain of salt every time they clock in. And even though the virus is not as flamboyant as it used to be, it's still around, and it's still very much a thing in these warehouses. There's still people contracting this virus and bringing it home, or at least dealing with it in some sense. So it's a scary situation for workers. They go to work every day just unsure, and now it's just to a point where 6 months later, I think the company is just trying to let time blow this over and use their media, power to buy all these ads. You may see them all the time now, these ads. Yeah. That's a part of their $4 billion that they allegedly spent on protecting workers. It's not enough. It never was enough. You cannot replace people that have died and these families that have lost loved ones. So to my opinion on what they've done for workers is not enough, and it never will be enough. They failed, they dropped the ball. And Only I guess you could say only the workers will have the power to fix what's going on with Amazon. Jeff Bezos and his higher ups, they will never be able to fix the situation now because it's too late. And they don't know. They're not the workers. They're not a part of us. They're not a part of the working class. We're not a part of the 1%. You know, we have to take care of ourselves. That's how I put it. We have to do that for ourselves.
Do you feel like you were fired because Amazon worried about you because you were basically a liability to them as far as doing that walkout? And not even just that, they figured maybe thinking down the road you would try to really push for a union.
Yeah, absolutely. There's multiple reasons why they have fired me. The color of my skin, the fact that I was whistleblowing, and the fact that you know, there's always been talks of unionizing. I wasn't no union organizer beforehand, but I very much would be for this situation because now you see how unprotected we really are, even when it comes to retaliation and wrongful termination. I wasn't the only one that be fired for speaking up. So a union would definitely had protected us in some degree, and also the demands that we are advocating for, at least to some degree, we would have known some unions would be able to provide that. So, you know, I just want to know that, well, let everybody know that what I'm fighting for is definitely, even though I'm no longer employed with the company, it's definitely for the workers and workers to fight for something that is worker driven. You know, the workers deserve to have the power.
So let me ask you this, because I don't remember if I heard this correctly, but I heard something on the news that the Amazon VP, Mr. Bray, resigned due to the treatment of the workers. I think he actually spoke about you when he resigned. Did you guys speak?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, the guy. Yeah, the day he resigned, I was able to have a phone call with him, brief conversation. We had, you know, he stood in solidarity with me from day one. He wrote that letter as he resigned, included me in it, some other workers that were fired as well. He still stands in solidarity with us, and he's a good guy. You know, that was a very powerful move, statement by him to walk away from a salary like his and to walk away for the reasons that he did. That validated the reason why we ultimately walked out in the beginning. You know, the fact that we weren't taken care of by the company. So that shows you how much our message resonated with the tech side, with the corporate side as well, all the way up to the VP position. So, you know, I knew right then and there that what I was doing was the right thing, and I still know and still believe that what I'm fighting for is the right thing, and we're just trying to continue that movement and that momentum.
So what did the Vice President Bray say to you when you guys spoke? Did he just stand in solidarity? Did he give you any tips about really what goes on in these boardrooms and, you know, how to break, you know, maybe get a starter union or break up some of this monopoly in general?
Well, I believe Mr. Bray, he believes in demonopolizing Amazon. He believes that it shouldn't be all one entity. And I agree, it should be demonopolized and broken down into smaller corporations or companies, because obviously this man, Jeff Bezos, don't even know his own policies. If you've seen the antitrust hearing in Congress, this man doesn't even know his policies. So he definitely, if he don't even know his policies when it comes to his own sales online, what makes you think he knows his policies about warehouses? He don't know anything. So Tim Bray, I think the conversation was about pretty much standing in solidarity with the workers. It's important that, you know, the tech side and corporate side shows actual solidarity, not just lip service. So having that conversation, he put action behind his words, because after that conversation, he asked me for permission to tweet that he spoke to me, which we know will raise some eyes, and he did that. He did exactly that. As soon as we got the phone, I looked on his Twitter page, and he said, "Hey, just had a conversation with Chris Smalls." So imagine how, you know, these VPs that worked at Amazon were like, "Oh my God, he's talking to him," you know. So that shows true solidarity, though, and that shows that he's actually standing behind the workers in the warehouses and standing behind what we believe in as well. And all I can say is that he's a good guy for that, and I believe that more people should do the same thing if they truly believe that workers are not being protected. Stand in solidarity with your workers, especially if you're in a position or a VP position. That shows true power, and hopefully in the future we'll see more of that.
Chris Smalls here. I'm Fire Breathing Rob. He's a former Amazon supervisor and organizer in we'll just say in the progressive movement and the workers movement in general. Chris, I have two questions left. With that, let's kick this around, Chris. Excuse me. My thing is, Chris, is I know that you talked about on a couple networks a little while back, a few months back, and you spoke about maybe taking some legal action against Amazon. I know that, with this, you can't say much, but is there anything you could speak to the viewers about what's going on with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have an amazing legal team, actually one of the most powerful lawyers in the country. It's my lawyer, C.K. Hopler. She is the president of the NBA, the National Bar Association. She was just sworn in this past July. So she has 75,000 lawyers underneath her belt now. Wow. And she is my lawyer. She's been representing me since day one. She was appointed to me by Reverend Jesse Jackson, the man who walked with Martin Luther King. He called me in the beginning of this situation, and he uplifted my spirit and helped me get through this tough time in my life. And from there, he gave me a lawyer that is very powerful. She's amazing. We built an amazing legal team, and our actions are, we want to take an action that's going to be beneficial for all people. I decided to go that route, not just myself. You may have seen the Attorney State General's office as well of New York. Letitia James, she's investigated on my behalf. Mayor de Blasio from New York also opened an investigation on my behalf. So the class action suit is one option that I chose to go. The class action will represent all workers that were affected. I feel like it was always bigger than me, never about me. It's always about everybody. So I chose that route. You may hear about it when our press conference come out in a couple of weeks. Also, we have personal claims as well for wrongful termination, retaliation, things of that nature, whistleblowing as well, which would be more of a personal lawsuit. But initially, we're going to take a class action suit. And like I said, we'll get into more details once it comes out to the public. But that's the way we're going. We want something that's going to be beneficial for everybody.
That's great. That's really great to hear. I think Amazon really needs to be taken to task for what they've done to you, but not just you, many other workers. Chris, have you spoke to any other politicians besides the Reverend Jesse Jackson? Anybody else reach out to you?
Oh, yeah. I spoke to a lot of people.
Any presidential candidates or anything?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so you may have seen there's been a number of candidates that signed letters on my behalf. Some of them, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker. I'm missing a lot of them. There's about 9 to 13 senators that actually sent a letter to Jeff Bezos on my behalf. A few of them I was able to have conversations with. I've been on a lot of webinars and town hall meetings over the course of the past 6 months. I lost count of how many interviews and things I've done. Probably well over 1,000, probably by now. So I definitely have spoken to some presidential candidates and definitely been in communication with people on their team or even their constituents. A lot of the younger generation has been been campaigning with like Bernie Sanders. They've been flocking to me, and we've been working together. So it's been amazing to actually be a part of this movement and get to a level where I'm able to reach out to people of that stature. And I just came back from Washington, D.C. last weekend, and that was another historical moment. Just advocating in front of Jeff Bezos' house and then going to the White House and joining the social injustice fight in front of the White House was amazing as well. So I have a long battle ahead of me, and I'm going to continue to hold these senators and everybody accountable that signed these letters, especially the Democratic Party. We want to see more progressive Democrats come out. AOC is one of them that she's been speaking a lot about workers in my situation as well. So she provided statements for us to read at our demonstrations as well. So these senators are very much well aware of what's going on with me, with Amazon, with workers, essential workers. So we're going to hold them accountable, and that's what I'm going to continue to do. I'm definitely going to do that.
So we're taping this on Labor Day, and the last question goes with that, Chris, and I do appreciate your time. You are truly amazing, and thanks for coming on and speaking to the viewers about this, Chris. With it being taped on Labor Day, and obviously this is a day for workers, can you speak to workers one-on-one right now as we end the interview and tell them, give the workers some hope? Because, basically workers have been, dumped on, to say it nicely, through years upon years on end. So can you give those workers hope of what's around the corner?
Yeah. Hope is all I can give you at this time. As workers, this COVID-19 exposed a lot about this country, exposed a lot about capitalism, racism, all the isms, imperialism, sexism. It's a whole lot of things that we're dealing with. But one thing for sure is the working class people, we deserve better. And as workers, especially if we're deemed as essential workers, we deserve a whole lot better. Essential means that you're a necessity. And if your employer is not treating you like a necessity, that means they're not taking care of you. You should be no longer subjected to that. This virus exposed you a lot about what you're going through in your personal life and even as a professional. And like I said before, if your employer is not taking care of you during this time, this is the time to fight back. We cannot go through these unprecedented times without change. And if you go and look back on this time, whatever is 1 year, 2 years, 3 years from now, you're going to ask yourself, what did you do during COVID-19? What did you do during this pandemic? Was you the ones that sat back and watched as a spectator, or was you the ones that actually got out there in the streets and took action? So as a worker, as an organizer and a leader, I'm saying the time is now. Fight back. These are our communities, not the 1%ers, not the billionaires, not even the politicians. We deserve to take care of ourselves. The time is now. Let's do that together and continue fighting.
Very inspirational, Chris. I appreciate that as you end the interview. And thanks so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to do this. It means a lot, seriously.
Absolutely. Anytime.